Everyone, welcome. My name is Dan Miller. I'm with Hazard Control Technologies. I'm the product manager and chief of training. We've got a few more people that are coming into our webinar yet. We'll start in about 2 minutes. All right, everybody. We have over 60 participants today. That's great. My name is Dan Miller. Again, I'm the product manager for Hazard Control Technologies, maker of F500. Today, our speaker is John Stanislaw. He's from the Washington and Oregon area of the United States, and he's going to be presenting on exploring alternatives to fluorine-free foam with NFPA 18A. And so what we'd like you to do today to introduce yourselves is to put in the chat screen your name, first name, last name, whatever you want, and then what area of the world you are from, and why you're joining us today. You know, it can be a very short statement, but we'd love to know why you're joining us today, what brought you here. And then as we go throughout this presentation, there's also a Q&A button on your screen for questions and answers. That's a little bit separate from the chat. Um, if you discover questions as we go along, be sure and type them into the Q&A section, and we'll be sure to answer them at the end of the presentation. We'll have a Q&A session. So without wasting any more of your time, let John take over.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time zone you're in right now. Yeah, we're going to talk about some alternatives to fluorine-free foam, specifically encapsulator agents today. So our company, Hazard Control Technologies, has been around for 27 years. We protect 6 continents. It's a U.S. owned and operated company based out of Fayetteville, Georgia, here in the United States, and an ISO 9001 company. So we've been around for a long time, and not only do we have numerous years of testing, but a growing wealth of real-world live fire results. And we're going to talk about some of those today. So like Dan said, I have 35 years in the fire service. Started out as a volunteer firefighter on Long Island, New York, back in 1990. Became paramedic, and I've worked as both a career firefighter and training officer, and as a volunteer in large and small departments. So I understand the challenges that folks face depending on the size of your agency, the people you have to work with, your apparatus, your funding, which is huge, and obviously, especially today, even in the career fire service, staffing challenges. So fluorine-free foams are great, right? We're finally phasing out PFASs in our firefighting foams. Hopefully PFASs and the moisture barrier in our turnout gear will be next. But fluorine foams are helping, but they don't address all the issues we face. Encapsulator agents bring a great deal of benefit to the fire service in that we deal with multiple sides of the fire tetrahedron, and we also have a great ability to stop the cohesion of free radicals and the production of smoke, soot, and toxic gases. We're going to touch on that today and how encapsulator agents allow you to proactively battle these toxins at the nozzle. There's more that we can do than just being reactive. All of you that are active in the fire service, this is not a surprise, but when you look at it on the screen, it really is imposing. Population in the United States has increased since 1980 by 42%. The number of calls has gone up by 336%. It is amazing. And at the same time, all of you that are with volunteer and career departments know the number of volunteer firefighters is decreasing. And as financial challenges strike the career fire service, we're starting, unfortunately, to see more and more of politicians calling for the closure of fire stations, browning out of companies, and laying off of firefighters. This couldn't come at a worse time. This is a graphic that really lays it out for you. When you look right down the middle of the United States and you look at the percentage of departments registered as volunteer, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it. So North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, they're saying that over 90% of their fire departments are volunteer. That's an enormous amount. So you already in those areas tend to have small departments with less people, and it's exacerbated by the fact that now you have even less than when you started with. So this video is filmed from the areas of the California wildfires, and it really touches on what modern structure fires, the hazards that we face, and what we encounter in these fires. This is the EPA talking about cleaning up after these fires.
Weeks after the Eaton fire ripped through the city of Altadena, just outside of Los Angeles, crews have begun the daunting task of clearing hazardous materials left behind. On Thursday, workers with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, rummaged through the rubble of scorched plots, plucking out materials like batteries and paint and propane cans by hand.
Yes, it's certainly the biggest job I think we've encountered.
22-year EPA veteran and on-site coordinator Harry Allen says it's one of the most complex jobs the agency has ever seen.
We want to make it safe for people to come back and look through the remains of the fire without having to worry about explosion hazards and fire hazards or chemical injury.
The EPA is running the initial phase of cleanup before government or private contractors come in with heavy equipment to clear entire lots. In addition to making the environment safe for residents to return, this initial removal phase also ensures that hazardous materials, like lithium batteries, don't wind up in the municipal trash where they can catch fire. President Donald Trump issued an executive order last week directing the EPA to complete the removal of hazardous materials, quote, as soon as practical. The administration gave the agency a deadline of February 25th.
And then, the pressures here, people want to return to work, they want to return home, they want to come in and see what's left of their place and try to rebuild. And, making that happen quickly for Angelenos.
So that's a really great example of the hazards that we face in a modern structure fire on the fire ground. Lithium-ion batteries, flammable liquids and gases, chemicals, paints, all of these things are giving off the toxic materials that make us sick, give us cancer, and are hazardous to us that we potentially could bring home to our families. In this slide, you were looking at a burning airplane fuselage. This was from Japan. This was the runway collision between the airliner and the Japanese Coast Guard plane. This is a carbon composite airplane fuselage on fire. The fire began as a flammable liquid pool fire, which then spread to the actual structure of the aircraft. Carbon fiber, as everyone knows, does not burn. However, the resins and glues that are used are extremely flammable, burn very hot, and release a lot of toxic gases. In addition, carbon composite panels that burn form a char layer and are self-insulating. These are extremely difficult fires to fight because they require an enormous amount of cooling capability to stop the fire propagation in the aircraft structure. Encapsulator agents, through thermal conveyance, offers superior heat absorbing capability and would be an ideal agent for a fire like this. You can see on the ground fire has been extinguished using an F3 foam. However, they were unable to extinguish the structural composite fire. The airplane eventually burned down to just the metal components. This is what we're facing today. So encapsulator agents, go back here, my slide got away from me. Encapsulator agents can effectively mitigate Class A, 2 and 3D Class B, so your flowing flammable liquids or gases, energized electrical equipment, Class D fires, so your titanium, your magnesium, and lithium-ion hazards. So your fluorine-free foams, or your Class A foams, maybe only can do Class A. Maybe it's a fluorine-free Class B foam, can only do two-dimensional Class B. So encapsulator agents offer you the most bang for your buck in your agent tank. If your pumper has a 20 or 30 or 40-gallon agent cell for feeding an onboard system, that gives you a full range of capabilities against all classes of fire that you may come across. Where, say, only having Class A foam only gives you Class A capability. Fluorine-free foams can be, or encapsulator agents can be third-party proven to be free of fluorinated agents. Not all agents that claim to be an encapsulator agent are fluorine-free. So we encourage everyone, whenever you're going and doing your homework and you're looking at purchasing a new agent, that you look at those safety data sheets, technical data sheets, and you ask the manufacturer and the rep to provide you with thorough documentation that the product they're providing to you or offering to provide to you is in fact safe and fluorine-free. We don't want to trade one hazardous foam for another. F500 is third-party proven to be fluorine-free. We also have significant toxicological studies, including from Clemson University in South Carolina, that show our agent is environmentally safe, and in fact, in the case of F500, meets the USDA requirements to be a food additive. Even though that's not what it's designed for, it is that safe. So when someone comes and talks to you, make sure you ask those hard questions and be sure that what you're getting is truly fluorine-free and safe. I don't know why my computer is doing this. Proactive. Proactive is a big word for me. In the fire service, we've gotten very good about being reactive when it comes to cancer prevention. I hope all of your agencies are doing initial gross decon when your folks come out of a structure fire while they're still on air, or after combating a vehicle fire while there's wipes, decontamination wipes on your neck and your jaw. You're going back to the station, immediately showering and changing into clean clothes, and then getting into a second set of gear. Those are all great practices that we all should be doing. Encapsulator agents like F500 bring a new angle to this. We can be proactive. And we talked a little bit, and we're going to talk more about that ability of encapsulator agents to interrupt the cohesion of free radicals. And that's where those toxic chemicals are formed. Clemson University said a solution of F500 sprayed over a fire can reduce smoke, soot, and toxic gases by up to 90%. This is proactive. When you go through the doorway flowing water out of your nozzle that has an encapsulator agent solution, you are proactively decontaminating the environment ahead of the nozzle. You're limiting the exposure to your people of those materials. And then whatever does get on them, we address with those reactive decontamination means. So lithium-ion batteries, right? That's the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now for the fire service and industry. They are everywhere. Every single one of you watching this is watching it on a device powered by a lithium-ion battery, likely. If you're using a phone or a laptop, they are in scooters, they are in tablets, they are in our vehicles, they're in our homes in the way of battery energy storage systems, they're in industrial environments. They are in the musical greeting cards that you buy at the supermarket. Those are tiny little polymer pouch lithium-ion batteries. Vapes are another great example. So encapsulator agents can be third-party proven to be effective on these fires. So if you get a copy of NFPA 18A, which is the standard on water additives for fire control and vapor mitigation, and you go to Annex 4.3, you will see a statement from the NFPA that third-party testing has shown that encapsulator agents that meet the standards shown in NFPA 18A, specifically Section 7.7, spherical micelle stability test, that those agents are proven highly effective on lithium-ion batteries. You can see that fluorine-free foams not only not recommended for these, they're also not recommended for three-dimensional flowing fuel fire hazards. One of the big issues that we find with lithium-ion batteries is the flammable liquid electrolyte in the batteries is a main propagator or part of that fire problem. So being able to encapsulate those flammable electrolytes goes a long way to extinguishing those fires. And when we get to the end of the video, you're going to see some third-party testing done out of Korea where you'll see this in action. Fire blankets. I'm sure some of you watching here, your agencies may have purchased fire blankets or are in the process of looking at fire blankets. Fire blankets can be very difficult to deploy. If you've never handled one, they can run anywhere between 70 to 100 pounds. They're susceptible to tearing. And one of the challenges is they're sort of a one-trick pony for firefighting. And as you can see at this fire at this parking garage at the Newark Airport, you have multiple vehicles on fire. So if, let's say, you have an electric vehicle charging area and the fire is propagated to 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 vehicles, how many fire blankets are you going to be able to deploy? And then if you look at these burning cars in the middle of the stack, they're very difficult to maneuver and get on. It basically requires your folks in full turnout gear and breathing air to get in extremely close, danger close proximity to vehicles that can explode, can have projectile hazards, toxic gases, and other thermal hazards. So they have a place, but it's very limited, and encapsulator agents give you the ability to address every fire hazard you see in this picture, from the plastic materials in the cabin of the car to the flammable liquids that may be coming from internal combustion vehicle fuel tanks, rubbers, plastics, and the like. Truly a multi-class solution. So what is an encapsulator agent? I've talked a lot so far about what they can do. Let's talk about what they are. Encapsulator agents start with the basic building block, and that basic building block is a spherical micelle. So encapsulation technology starts with our molecule. And the molecule is the basic building block that forms the micelle. You have a polar head. Polar things love water, want everything to do with water, want to be in water. And then you have a long non-polar tail. Non-polar things hate water, will do anything to get away from water. So when it's either batch mixed or picked up with an inductor or an injection system, once those molecules get into the water stream, they will form a spherical micelle. And what they will do is the polar heads will face outward towards the water, and the non-polar tails will face inward to get away from the water. Now, once these individual water droplets leave the nozzle, the spherical micelles on the surface will break apart. The polar heads will nestle up against the surface of the droplet. They want to be next to that water, and those non-polar tails are going to face outward. Meanwhile, inside of the droplet, you will have millions and millions and millions of these microscopic sized spherical micelles. And they're bouncing around in there, right? They're moving around. They're like little Ferraris racing around. They'll race out, they'll hit the surface of the droplet, they'll absorb heat, and they'll drive back inwards. That's the process of thermal conveyance. So that is why a water droplet treated with an encapsulator agent solution can absorb significantly more heat than an untreated one. So a plain water droplet will boil at 212 degrees. A water droplet treated with an encapsulator agent solution will boil at 248 degrees. Have we changed water? Absolutely not. Water is still fundamentally water. What we've done is we've added an agent that makes that water more efficient. We make that droplet more efficient at absorbing heat. And at the same time, we give it the ability to encapsulate hydrocarbon molecules. So foams work on a mechanical level, right? So everyone that's gone through Firefighter 2, the module on foam, we know that foams, you form a thick homogeneous bubble blanket. That bubble blanket goes over the surface of, say, burning gasoline or jet fuel, and it separates the fuel from the oxygen, right? And it also has a limited cooling effect. But really, you're separating things mechanically. Those blankets are very subject to damage from mechanical means, from wind, from rain, from fire streams. That's why you have to continuously reapply them to maintain that security. Encapsulator agents work at the mechanical level. So at the molecular level. So what happens is when those encapsulator molecules, the spherical micelles, come in contact with those flammable liquid and gas, those hydrocarbons, they actually chemically cocoon them, much like Pac-Man. They take them inside. Once they're chemically cocooned, they're locked in there. They can no longer burn. That is why an encapsulator agent stream, say discharge from a fog nozzle, can extinguish a flowing two or three-dimensional flammable liquid fire, three-dimensional pressurized fuel fire, a pressurized gas fire, because we're not smothering, we're encapsulating. And we're attacking the four sides of the fire tetrahedron with the encapsulation, rapid heat reduction, and interruption of free radicals. Because of these things, encapsulator agents are now included in the latest FAA advisory circular on fire extinguishing agents approved for use in aircraft rescue firefighting. This is just one of the latest approvals that we've received for F500. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at some gasoline on the ground. This firefighter can apply a 3% dilution at F500, mixed with water, combined with agitation. Notice he's not trying to make a gentle blanket. He's vigorously agitating. That agitation process allows the spherical micelle to encapsulate those flammable liquid molecules. He's going to come back now with the torch, and the fuel's not going to ignite. Notice he's walking through it. There is no blanket. This solution looks like 2% milk when it comes out. We're not covering and blanketing the fuel. We're encapsulating the fuel. That fuel is locked up. It will not burn now. This gives you superior protection, especially in, say, a vehicle extrication, right? So you have flammable liquids on the ground. Your folks have to work on that to extricate. You can take a hand line or our TKO nozzle, a Pro Pack. You can use extinguishers. You can encapsulate that fuel on your ground. Your people can work in it and not have to worry about creating and maintaining a blanket. And again, this proactive ability to reduce the hazards we're exposed to. How do we reduce the carcinogens we're exposed to on the fire ground? These carcinogens are formed at the flame front by the cohesion of free radicals produced by the fire. That's why when you see F500 being applied to, say, a stack of tires or a flammable liquid fire, you will see the fire is still burning and the smoke will instantaneously disappear. We've stopped the creation of those smoke, soot, and toxic gases. In an interior structure fire, I like to call it, you turn a regular fire into a Hollywood fire, where as you apply the encapsulator agent into the overhead with either a smoothbore or fog nozzle, these agents are application agnostic. They do not require an aeration tube. They do not require only a fog nozzle. They can go through a smoothbore. They can go through a deck pipe. They can go through a distributor nozzle, a piercing nozzle. They will literally knock that smoke out of the environment and will open it up, increasing visibility, reducing temperature, and reducing the toxins that any potential victims that may be in the fire compartment are exposed to. Testing by the Laval Fire Department in Canada and the University of Ottawa during testing looked at the levels of polyaromatic hydrocarbons recorded on PPE after using water versus F500. What they did in Canada, they got a farmhouse. They did NFPA research burns, which allowed them to put ordinary combustibles that you'd find in a structure, synthetics like TVs, carpets, sofas, and the like. They set 4 identical fires. 2 were fought with plain water and 2 were fought with an encapsulator agent solution. Significant reduction in the amount of polyaromatic hydrocarbons found in the hoods of the firefighters. So proven scientifically to reduce the toxic and cancer-causing things we get exposed to. So we talked a little about Section 7.7 in NFPA 18A in 2022. First of the kind standard for things like encapsulator agents. Standards water additives for fire control vapor mitigation. The criteria to meet that includes a spherical micelle stability test, and that in Section 7.7 evaluates the concentrator's ability to render fuel non-flammable. Again, it's very important when someone comes to you and talks about, hey, we have an encapsulator agent. These are questions you need to ask them. Have you passed? Can you prove to me through third party that you have passed the Section 7.7 testing. The criteria is outlined in NFPA 18A, and they should be able to prove to you that they can pass that.
Hey, John, I've got a
Yeah.
quick interruption.
Yes.
On the next to the share button on your screen, there should be a little up arrow or
Yes.
down arrow. Can you click on that and see if it offers you to split video from slides?
Sure. I see share. See up arrow, down arrow. Where would that be?
I think it's next to the share, the green share button with the little green up arrow or down arrow, the way I'm seeing it. But
I don't see.
right now your image is over the top of the text on a lot of the slides, so
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to turn it off other than that. So
Let me see. I'm not sure how to do that in the middle of the slideshow.
I don't know either.
The funny feeling, if I try to do that, I may just make
Right.
myself
Let's
disappear.
just start over.
It doesn't have me down in the lower corner there.
It's got you right over like the left-hand half of the slides, blocking some of the text, not all of it. So
Okay. Sorry about that.
you'll be all right.
All right, we'll work through it.
Okay.
And any questions anyone has, we'll address at the end there. One of the neat things, again, we talked about NFPA 18A and Annex 4.3. We have over 15 years of extensive third-party testing from all over the world, not only in the United States, but in Europe. Sadly, and I say that as an American firefighter, sadly, the United States is years behind what is being done in other countries in the world, especially Europe. The Dutch with their NEN standard on portable extinguishers for lithium-ion battery firefighting, there is significantly more third-party testing going on outside of the United States. I often have firefighters and other folks say to me, John, where's all the US testing? Unfortunately, not naming names, but there are a number of well-known testing agencies in the United States that are still sitting on the fence about trying to decide how to do testing. While in places like Europe, they have figured this out and have done a lot of real-world live fire testing. Anyway, again, when someone comes to you and says, we have an encapsulator agent, ask them, show me your third-party testing. I would really like to see who's done research with your product. You want to ask these questions. Okay, now I messed with it. And now, can you guys, am I moving here? Hey, Dan, am I changing slides? Here we go. Make sure I'm not going backwards. Okay. So this is testing out of Korea that recently happened. So what they did was they took Kia Kona, brand new, the 64 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery pack. And they looked at the standard parking garage standpipe system that they have, uses an adductor, a low pressure adductor, and a concentrate tank. And they took some F500 and put it in that system. This is very interesting. These are designed to work off of hydro pressure. This is a 40 to 50 PSI low pressure system. So they're using 2.5-inch hose with roughly a 50-gallon-a-minute fog nozzle. This is not a high flow hand line, and you'll see the way the hose kinks during the video. So they set up an extremely well-instrumented, very complicated testing criteria and invited VIPs, member of industry, members of the Korean Fire Service to come attend and watch this. So using the F500 encapsulator agent, you're going to see really how well it works combating all sides of the fire tetrahedron. But real world testing. So we have this brand new Kia Kona, heavily instrumented. They went and put sensors in the lithium-ion battery pack, in the different modules in there, and they set their criteria up to look at something. So what if a thermal runaway happens and the vehicle catches fire? Well, Unless you have this happen in the parking lot of your fire station, there's going to be delay in response. And so what they figured into the test was, after they induce a thermal runaway using a propane torch to heat up the lithium-ion battery pack, and in the Kona, the pack is sort of an L-shaped pack. It's partially under the hood, and then it goes under the front of the vehicle. So you're going to see them slide this propane torch up underneath the vehicle, and you can see the wiring for the instrumentation. And they're going to use this to create heat to induce a thermal runaway. Then, once the vehicle starts burning, once their instruments have shown them that that battery pack is in thermal runaway, they're then going to wait 7 minutes. That is the average response time for a municipal fire department in Korea from the time of the receipt of the alarm till they arrive on scene. So again, they're giving this fire the time to build. And so the firefighters that are going to come in and attack this fire are going to face the situation that they would face if they showed up at a real fire on scene. So again, we're using this to induce the thermal runaway, and they're going to wait. They're watching the instrumentation. They're watching the heat up. They're going to adjust it a little bit to make sure that they're not starting the car on fire. They're getting the battery pack on fire. You'll see a little bit of dripping, burning plastic from the casing on the underside of the car, but this fire is going to begin in the battery pack and then propagate to the vehicle and not vice versa. So we're going to get this car cooking here, and you can see that's a lot of heat. You see that plastic starting to melt down there. Again, multiple cameras, multiple instrumentation. This is a very scientific study being done for the government of South Korea to determine if they would approve the use of encapsulator agents. So 11 minutes in, we see the thermal runaway begin. Not only know this by the kind of explosive outbreak of the fire, but again, that instrumentation pigtail that's coming out of the vehicle has told the folks that are monitoring it that the battery pack is in fact in thermal runaway. So one of the things we need to remember, as many of you know, is individual cells create modules, modules create packs. So in this case, the entire battery is not on fire. Only some modules are on fire, right? So the fire is burning. Again, we're giving that 7-minute pre-burn, and we're letting that fire now get into the cabin of the car. You're going to see the interior of the vehicle begin to burn until we have a fully involved, well-developed fire in the vehicle. Once they're giving you okay, the firefighters are going to enter. And again, I'd really like you to look at the 2.5-inch hose line they're using. You'll see how much it's kinking and kind of folding over their shoulders and under the arms as they bring it in. We're only talking a pressure of 50 psi, 40 to 50 psi, and a flow of about 40 to 50 gallons per minute. This is not a high flow hand line. This is what the Korean firefighters would be using in a multi-story parking garage coming off of the standpipe system. So this is a real world test using the real world equipment they'd be expected to use in this type of fire. So we're going to let this fire continue to grow. Left front tire blew, so we got a lot of heat. We're getting a fully involved vehicle fire, what's within the cabin of the vehicle. This is that 7-minute pre-burn. And look at the environment. Look how dark. There are exhaust fans running to clear this space, and it is still, the visibility is getting darker and darker and darker. That is how much smoke, soot, and toxic gases are coming off this vehicle. Even the cameras, the ceiling, are having difficulty recording as that smoke layer continues to bank down. And this, like I said, is with fans running. So once they're given the go-ahead here in a split second, they're going to start attacking the fire. They're going to start with an under-vehicle nozzles. Under-vehicle nozzles are a great complementary tool. One of the things that we teach people in our experience, our team together, we have figured that we've probably burned collectively between all of us somewhere 50 to 75 EVs. Personally, I've been involved with burning 7 of them. We found that even with plain water, you have to apply the agent where you see the fire. So if the fire is venting out from below through holes in the underside of the battery pack, you need to supply agent and apply it underneath. Under vehicle nozzles are great for that. In this case, if the fire is coming out of up through the floor in the cabin, you have to apply within. Whichever agent you use to fight an EV fire, keeping the nozzle moving is critical. You have to keep moving. You can't stand still. Wherever you see the fire, you have to apply the agent. Why is that? Because the fire is making access points for you. Where you see flames coming out of the battery pack is an opening that allows you to get your extinguishing agent into the battery pack. So yes, we're cooling the outside of it. The under vehicle nozzle is cooling the steel or metal frame of the battery pack. But again, you're going to see this nozzleman as he moves around, he's going to go back to the front there. And speaking to him afterwards, what he said was he could actually see holes in the front of the pack where the wiring harnesses went in, sensors went in. Those had burned away, and he could see the flames burning inside the pack, and that's where he directed the stream. You can already see the massive environment change. The black smoke is gone. The toxic gas has been reduced. We can see the windows again along the top side of the fire chamber. And we're cooling, cooling, cooling. He's just going to keep cooling this battery pack, right? At the same time as that encapsulator agent solution gets inside the compromised pack, it is going to encapsulate those flammable electrolytes. Yes, there will still be stranded energy in the battery pack. That stranded energy is still going to be causing arcing and other heat sources that could ignite. But by encapsulating the flammable electrolyte, we're limiting the amount of fuel that can potentially ignite. 8 minutes and 30 seconds, the fire was called extinguished and suppression was complete. So it's a game changer. It really is. And again, talking about that instrumentation pigtail, one of the questions we're often asked is, well, maybe the battery pack just burned itself out. After this test, they disassembled the battery pack and several modules that had not become involved were still intact in the battery. The fire was extinguished. It did not burn itself out. Plain water is inefficient. You need a lot of it for whatever class of firefighting, class A, class B. It doesn't provide long-term burnback resistance. It does nothing to stop toxic runoff. And it's not effective on class B, C, D, or lithium-ion hazards, right? That's why we're told by Tesla in their guidance to emergency responders, have 30,000 gallons of water on scene to fight the fire. Where are you going to get 30,000 gallons of water? So the combination department in the town I live in, on a good day, they're lucky if they can get a 1,000 gallon engine and a 3,000 gallon water tender on the road. That's 4,000 gallons. How much mutual aid do you need? Up on the highway, even for city departments, big city departments. You're up on a freeway, you're up on an expressway, a tunnel, a bridge. How much water can you get to the scene? Water is not a really effective agent. Fluorine-free foams, like we said, work on a mechanical level. They merely trap the heat under a blanket. They do nothing for the toxic effects and runaway. It can reignite. We worry about breaking the blanket. And they have class limitations, right? But then encapsulator agents, again, we're attacking multiple sides of the problem. We're drastically reducing the heat, using much less water. We're providing that stable long-term burnback resistance. We're stopping the production of toxic smoke, soot, and gases. And we're extremely efficient. Again, Class E, Class B, 2 and 3D Class B fires, energized electrical equipment, lithium-ion batteries, Class D metals, structure, grass, wildland, rubbish, works great. Again, you've got 20 gallons, 30 gallons, or 40 gallons of agent in the cell on your apparatus. You're making that apparatus a Swiss Army knife. You're making it useful against any class of fire you encounter. The agent contains no fluorinated active ingredients. Why do I say the agent contains no fluorinated active ingredients? Well, because the municipal water that you may be mixing this with may contain PFASs. Unfortunately, in most of the world today, you will find some what they call an acceptable level of PFASs in drinking water, okay? So the concentrate, when you get it from us, there is no fluorinated agents in it, okay? And this has been proven by multiple testing laboratories worldwide. It is biodegradable. F500 is approved by the United States EPA as a surface washing agent. It biodegrades naturally in the environment. It is not persistent in the environment. It actually helps bioremediation of hydrocarbons. It accelerates the natural bioremediation. It makes those encapsulated hydrocarbons more amenable for the microbes in the soil to eat them. It's non-corrosive, pH of 7. People often ask, what about our pumps? What about our booster tank? What about our nozzles? Again, for hazard control technologies, F500EA, we have letters of compliance from folks like Hale Pumps, Pro Poly. Again, if someone comes and says, I have an encapsulator agent, ask them these questions. Who do you have letters of compatibility with? So we'll talk about a real world example. Many of you probably heard about the accident north of Las Vegas a few months ago in Nye County, where a semi-truck hauling over 30,000 pounds of lithium-ion batteries struck a truck hauling lumber, causing a fire. As luck would have it, just months before, the Department of Energy, their Environmental Management Nevada program, provided through grant funding the Nye County Fire Departments with F500 Encapsulator Agent. TKO nozzles, which is our own self-adducting nozzle. They provided them with trailers with totes and self-adducting master stream nozzles. So 2 of their stations each got a trailer with a 250-gallon tote of F500 and a 500-gallon minute self-adducting master stream nozzle. This video was filmed just a few weeks before the fire.
We're currently at the Nye County training facility where we did several live fire demonstrations, our classroom studies where we went over all the benefits for F500 compared to various foam and straight water products that we typically have been using in the fire service for decades now. Everyone knows that some of the components built in to previous foams have been found to be cancerous. So we were looking for a different option, something that we would be able to utilize on our major transportation corridors, as well as our local fires where they were severe events or significant events that needed something else. And as we saw today, it shortened the time for suppression and achieving control, but it also minimized the amount of water. We did multiple demonstrations using handline and also a master stream, all on less than 500 gallons of water. And that's in totality, including just the prep. The other aspect of this is it's extremely safe. It can be used for purposes of mop up, it's clean to the earth. When you have an ignited fire and it's producing significant BTUs, you cannot be near it. Obviously, you want to get it as far away from as possible. As soon as the F500 was applied, that heat trace significantly diminished and allowed you to walk right up to the burning material. So we had purchased these trailers that are capable of not only deploying hand lines, but also master streams, deploying great amount of product and water. But our goal, because we don't have a lot of water available to us on the highways, was to minimize the water aspect and ascertain a product that would allow us to best maximize our suppression efforts. How fortunate we are to have such grants available to us, because it allows us to meet our objectives in ensuring a safe environment.
So when he was combating the tire fires, I hope you noticed how the smoke simply disappeared. The tires were still burning and that smoke was gone, right? And I find it very prophetic about how he was talking about limited amounts of water, because prior to their crash back in July, many of you may have heard about this, was the Tesla semi-truck in California on I-15 that shut down I-15 for 2 days. They deployed over 50,000 gallons of water to try to fight the fire. And because it was threatening to spread to become a wildland interface fire, actually wound up calling in air tankers to do retardant drops around the perimeter of the fire. This is extremely inefficient. It's inefficient from a firefighting standpoint, it's inefficient from a cost standpoint, and it's inefficient from a commerce standpoint, right? They basically had to let this semi burn itself out. And then what happens? In September of this past year, again, we had those 2 semi-trucks collide. The one that was hauling 31,000 pounds of lithium batteries was heading to a Tesla factory. Nye County showed up. They fought the fire. You can see their trailer in action, and they used exactly 5,500 gallons of water with the F500 EA. They called the fire under control in 2 hours, but they had knockdown within the first 8 minutes. And the gentleman who heads up Nye County Emergency Management reached out to us and said they had their first deployment and it worked as advertised. So a friend of mine who served in Iraq said that's what a vehicle looks like after it's hit with a Hellfire missile. You can see all of the battery modules and cells blown out from the explosions around it. This was an extremely hot, violent fire that they were able to, again, knock down in 8 minutes and call completely under control in 2 hours. Very amazing capabilities from this product. So how do you make it? Well, here's the really great part. You can batch mix it in your booster tank. So I cover Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana. I have numerous rural departments that either carry it premixed in their booster tank or they carry 5-gallon buckets up in the dunnage area next to the fill tower. And if they have a call, they will literally pour it into the booster tank and premix it. You can also batch mix it in drop tanks or portable ponds and draft it. You can use standard adductors. Has a very similar viscosity to the foams that we're using today. So you can use your standard adductor, you can use a ProPack, you can use your agent injection system on your apparatus. Class A hazards, 0.5 to 1%. So structure, grass, brush, rubbish. Anything else, 3%. Really simple. And again, you can apply it through a water can. You could apply it through a fog nozzle, a smooth bore, a self-adducting nozzle. With extinguishers, I like to say that if you can hold the battery in your hand, then you can fight it with a handheld F500 extinguisher. So cell phones, laptops, tablets, ideal. Small e-bike and tool batteries, the handheld extinguishers are ideal. We get larger, we get in hybrids, EVs, forklifts, lithium-ion tractors and things like that. You're going to want to get to your larger nozzles, hand lines, self-adducting nozzles, apparatus-mounted systems, adductors. And then when we get into things like the semi-trucks, the charging stations and stuff, you're going to want a trailer with a master stream nozzle. What's really fascinating and interesting about this product is it can also be incorporated into existing or new sprinkler systems. So we have numerous systems in place protecting battery charging stations and parking garages, electric bus charging stations. How many of you who are watching have purchased a hybrid fire engine that's sitting in your apparatus bay right now? Have you pre-planned what to do if the battery pack in your hybrid fire engine catches fire in your station? Have you pre-planned what to do if the lithium-ion batteries on your extrication tools in your apparatus catch fire in your fire station, in your workshop? Maybe your administrative folks are running all EV or hybrid vehicles. What are your plans? You can retrofit F500 systems into the sprinkler system, protecting your apparatus bays and stations. When we talk eductors, know your flow, especially for onboard systems. A lot of small Class A foam systems, the Husky 3, for example, that's a maximum of 3 gallons per minute of concentrate. So folks will buy this and figure out I can run a 3% solution out of my deck gun. Know the limitations of your equipment. Standard adductors, they have to be pumped at 200 PSI at the inlet unless they are specifically marked as a low pressure eductor. Know what it can do. Make sure you're getting a continuous solution. And like we talked about in the video with the extinguisher, vigorous mixing, that kinetic energy is critical when we talk about encapsulating things like flammable liquids. It's a mindset change. We've always been taught to gently apply Class B foam. Yes, Class B foam, but when we're trying to encapsulate a flammable liquid with an encapsulator agent, we're vigorously mixing. We want to get that agitation to allow the maximum amount of chemical cocooning for those little Pac-Men to go in and eat those hydrocarbons. So training, and equipment knowledge is very important. So the other question a lot of folks ask is, well, John, that sounds great. Who's using it? Well, our largest user right now is the City of Chicago Fire Department, followed right behind by Columbus, Ohio. Chicago and Columbus are the two largest cities by population in the Midwest, and both of them are F500 users. Mesa, Arizona uses it. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey uses it to protect the bridges and tunnels of New York. Obviously, an electric vehicle on fire in an underwater tunnel is a bad thing. So they're using it on their bridge and tunnel trucks. We're in departments large and small. We're in 3 Department of Energy sites. We're up at Idaho Falls National Laboratory. We're at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and we're at the Pantex Nuclear Weapons Facility in Texas. It's a very widely used project. The Port of Portland Airport recently adopted to use it for electric vehicle firefighting in the parking garages on the ramp. So more and more departments are coming on board with this. They're trying it, they're testing it, they're doing their homework and their research, and they're very pleased with the results that they're getting. If you have questions, I don't know why that just appeared, but if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A. You can also contact us. You saw the phone number and the email. You will get a follow-up email with us with links. We have Encapsulator technology specialists around the world that would be very happy to come out and do a demonstration for you. So with that, Dan, looks like we're right on time.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you to answer for the group.
Sure, go for
I
it.
answered a couple already that answered them in text, but I'm sure everybody wants to hear. Number one, does F500 come as a fixed system and portable handheld system, both?
Yes, so the actual F500 is a liquid concentrate. So I tell people it looks like foam, it comes packaged like foam, and has the same viscosity as foam, and that's where its similarity with foam stops. So encapsulator agents are to foam like water is to dry chemical, right? But the agent itself, the concentrate, comes in plastic 5-gallon buckets or totes. And then yes, you can use it premix. You can premix it in a water can. You can use a self-adducting nozzle like a Pro Pack, or you can pick it up with an adductor or the system on your apparatus. Or it can be included in a sprinkler system, either with a water-driven proportioner or a bladder tank.
Okay, very good. Next question is, what is the coldest temperature F500 can be stored outside?
Another great question. It needs to be protected from freezing, right? So 32 degrees, you get below freezing, the concentrate will freeze. What's really interesting about it, though, is once it thaws, it won't break. So if you think about alcohol-resistant foams, like alcohol-resistant AFFF, how if it froze, the little beads would break out of solution, destroying it. In this case, if it freezes, you can thaw it. When it's pre-mixed in either a handheld extinguisher or a wheeled unit, it can be freeze protected with virgin propylene glycol, food grade propylene glycol. Again, keeping that environmental safety. At a 50-50 mix level, testing has shown that it's just as effective as being mixed with plain water, and you can freeze protect it to minus 31 degrees Fahrenheit in a premix with propylene glycol and water.
Okay, last question that was typed into Q&A at least, and I'm going to check the chat as well. I think there might be another one in there. Can handheld extinguishers be used on an EV fire?
Not recommended. So, and the reason is you have to think about the volume of fire and the volume of heat being produced, right? So those large battery packs, as you saw in the Korea video, they're very aggressive, very violent, and require a significant amount of cooling and flow. And a 2.5-gallon extinguisher, even multiple ones of them, really have a hard time with large battery packs. Again, this is where doing your homework and your research, you have to look at these things. Generally, what we have found in the real world is for a handheld means held in your hand. So if you can hold the lithium-ion battery in your hand, handheld will work great. Car fires, no, not recommended.
Yeah, I'd like to follow that up a little bit. So we like to recommend sound firefighting tactics with the use of encapsulator agents, no matter what you use them on. So although you don't need air aspirating equipment or any specialty equipment to apply an encapsulator agent, because it's just a simple water additive and doesn't require the formation of bubbles, we do like to recommend that you use NFPA recommended handline flows when you're attacking things like automobiles, structure fires, etc. You know, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to go out a lot quicker. But in the case of, for example, maybe your foam proportioning on board of your rig doesn't work right, or isn't set right today, or whatever, or somebody didn't tank mix yesterday, they forgot to add that jug of F500 before they left off of their shift. All those kinds of things can happen. We want you to have sustainable, safe, plain water results, but we want you to have better results with F500.
It's a great point, Dan. People often ask me, what do we need to change? And I tell them nothing. Keep doing what you do. If you already, let's say your cross lays have, 7/8 inch smooth bores and your SOGs say you go through the front door at 160 gallons a minute flowing and moving, keep doing that. Keep doing good firefighting practices. Just add the F500 and make your water work better. Do not change what you're doing because of the encapsulator agent.
Another point kind of reminds me of something that was covered earlier with the EV specifically, but it relates to other things as well that will come up in the future of firefighting, and that is, you can buy special items that might make vehicle firefighting a little bit better here and there, but there's only one type of agent that is widely available in every frontline fire engine that you already have, and that's F500. You just pour it in your water supply, and you don't have to go out and spend $50,000 or $100,000 on specialty items. It will put it out permanently with the stuff that you already have, and the SCBA that you're already using, and the typical firefighting turnout gear, and the typical company response. It brings you back down from the 30,000 gallons recommended by some authorities back down to the typical fire apparatus, maybe a second one at most.
And I think an important thing to follow up with is F500's proven to work with fresh, brackish, or salt water. So you can draft from a river, a lake, a bay, the ocean. In my part of the world, one of the places my wife and I like to go is a place called Puget Island, Washington. It's in the Columbia River. They have an extremely limited municipal water system. They use turbo drafts. They have a structure fire, they're turbo drafting out of the Columbia. The water is brackish. Okay. If you look at any of the mil spec F3 Class B foams, they will say not approved for saltwater use. F500 can be mixed with any type of water. So another important point if you regularly access brackish or salt water for firefighting. You're muted, Dan.
Just scrolling through the chats here to see if there's any. I do see one here. Gentleman asked, what would be the best suited fire attack and percentage for electric bus fire?
Electric bus fire, 3%. So this is a piece of the puzzle, right? The apps that let you know where battery packs are in EVs are invaluable. So is your TIC, right? You're going to use your TIC to look at the thermal signature of the battery. Right? We want to see continuous cooling. But again, electric buses, one of the challenges, where are the batteries? In many of the buses I've seen, the batteries are on the roof. So we're talking at that point, an aerial device or application with a hand line from an aerial device. Putting ground ladders up against the bus, I don't know, right? Because these things can get explosive quickly. So these are different things you need to think about. But when you get into something the size of an electric bus or a semi or something like that, you're talking, again, like Dan said, right? You're going to use a deck gun. You're going to use multiple hand lines, maybe a 2.5 or an aerial device to attack it. They can be, there was one in Grants Pass, Oregon here recently, extremely violent fire that they wound up fighting with a tower ladder and a deck gun. So that's where you need to plan, like the slide talks about, is your ability to produce agent in the quantity you're looking for to address those larger fires. That's where the trailers really excel.
So that brings up a few good points. Number one, how long does it take you to produce life-saving results? With F500, the same time as water. If you flow F500 with your first attack line on every fire, the life-saving results come with the product. So you're not waiting for a special device that there's only one in your city to come across town. And it also leads to that sometimes, or I would say often, repeated point on social media: just let them burn out, just let them burn out. There's lives or exposures involved. You can't let them burn out. You need fast results. F500 gives you those fast results, and they're permanent. Um, any of the testing we've ever done, there's never been a reignition unless someone physically shorted those battery pulls together again and caused a new fire. And that was, I mean, once in 20 years. So it puts it out fast, puts it out permanently. It's a life-saving water additive. We do have a few more questions that popped up in the Q&A, John.
Sure, let's do it.
Since we're talking about fluorine-free foam, or excuse me, AFFF and fluorine-free foam alternatives and things like that today, is F500 good to use on large flammable liquids fires and or overturned gasoline trucks for vapor suppression?
It's a great question. And this is where things get technical. So what to stop the production of vapors, you need to encapsulate the fuel that is basically off-gassing, right? And so you have a flat flammable spill on a roadway. So gasoline tanker's rolled over, it's ruptured, you have burning gasoline on the freeway. As you come up, you apply the agent, you agitate, you encapsulate it, you extinguish the fire, and you stop the production of vapors where you've encapsulated the fuel. So now we come up to the actual truck itself that's laying on its side. And as you guys know, on the MC306s, they're aluminum. A lot of times the shell will burn down, will knock the fire down rapidly, and you'll be left with partially filled chambers in the truck. At that point, then, in order to stop vapor suppression, you would have to fully mix, so 5 gallons of a 3% solution for every 1 gallon of fuel that remains to stop vapor off-gassing. So that's fuel in depth fires. So what we recommend and what we have a lot of refineries around the world doing is they get their initial rapid knockdown of the flammable liquid fire with the F500. It'll extinguish the fire, including a pool in depth. And then once the emergency is over, now we're in a maintenance stage while we're waiting for the contractors to come and clean it up. They'll apply some sort of a bubble blanket over the fuel to stop vapors. And believe it or not, you can do that with air aspirated Class A foam. You don't need to use a Class B foam. You just need a bubble barrier to stop the production of vapors. So in that case, a significant fuel in depth. I have 300 gallons, 400 gallons left in a compartment that's burned to the fuel line. Then yes, you would want to cover that with some sort of a vapor suppressing foam blanket. This is not a silver bullet. As my dad used to say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. We would never tell you that this is the be-all, end-all of firefighting. It is just another tool that gives you that extremely rapid rescue knockdown. And then it buys you time to take a deep breath and go, okay, we've gotten the people out of the vehicle, we've stopped the fire, we've controlled the emergency. Now we need to think long-term securing. So I hope that answers your question. Dan, you have any follow-up on that?
Yeah, and that's just it. The point, no PFAS-free agent is self-healing. So all of the fluorine-free foams that are out there, all the other agents that are PFAS-free, they're not self-healing anymore. So make sure you set yourself up for success. Either use 2 hand lines, hit it from a couple points of attack, and or a deck gun and a hand line. So you're getting it from both sides, and significant flows, 3%, you're going to knock it down very, very quickly. And then that, as John said, gives you time to figure out, all right, we knocked it down, we terminated the emergency, now what? So so it will knock those things down very quickly. If you've got like an above ground storage tank situation, we can definitely work with you on that to help you through that process. There's a number of factors there with floating roof tanks and covered floating roof tanks and all the what ifs that go with those things. But it's a very good replacement for that. It's UL listed for A and B as is. So the kind of the follow-on related question to that, John, is will F500 work with F3 foam?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that's one the aviation community has been asking for us for the last year or so. Like Dan said, the thing with the F3 foams is creating and maintaining a thick homogeneous bubble blanket, right? When you apply F500 chemically, it will have no effect on the F3 foam. Mechanically, the act of spraying the foam blanket with a water stream could damage the blanket, right? So just like if you took a handline stream, right, with a fog nozzle, you can mechanically, just like heavy rain or wind or whatever. So what we teach people is if you're using them in conjunction with each other, um, if you have, let's say, a problem area, let's say obstructions, gratings, pipes, stanchions, places where you can't seal your F3 blanket around those obstructions, or maybe you'd use dry chemical in your twin agent attack, what we tell people is use a hand line with the F500 and then have another hand line standing by with your F3 and just touch up the blanket, refresh the blanket wherever the um, F500 stream may have caused mechanical damage. So I hope that makes sense, right? So it'd be like if you took a giant fan and blew it across a foam blanket, it would start to fly away. Yeah, the act of spraying a fog stream with a 3% solution could mechanically damage the blanket.
All right. Another one has popped up. Does F500EA encapsulate pure chlorine gas?
Pure chlorine gas. I am going to tell you, I am not sure about that. So we have a mountain of testing. We have one of the neat things about our company is we have a team here, all of us, they're encapsulator technology specialists, sort of specialize in a different field. We have a Jeff Bonkowski, who's our Western Regional Manager, was a hazmat team leader in Michigan and has shipboard firefighting experience and hazmat experience. I would defer that question to Jeff. If you email us, we will get in touch with him and find that out for you. I do know we do knock down certain things like sulfuric acid, hydrofluoric acid, very effective on. Chlorine, I'm not sure. I would have to defer to our in-house expert on that. I'm sure we have the testing somewhere. I just don't have access to it right now.
And then one last question that I see is, what is the square footage coverage for a 5-gallon pail? We might have to do a little math.
Yeah, Dan's gonna do the math on that. So I will tell you while Dan does the math, I will tell you the real world firefighter answer to that is that what we teach people is when you're actually out there dealing with an incident, your four gas meter, your explosive meter, of course, correct your LEL for the product that you're, heptane, gasoline, ethanol, diesel, jet fuel. Make sure you do your correction on your meter. But we tell people start encapsulating the spill again, that at 3% agitated, getting that chemical cocooning, and then start to walk that meter, ideally with a sampling pump, over the surface anywhere that you still are detecting a detectable level, LEL level, you want to go reapply. Maybe you didn't get enough agitation. Maybe you didn't apply enough of the 3% solution in that particular spot. It's a really good way, again, street science, right? Any of you, I retired as an engineer. Any of you that's pumped fire apparatus know there's the math science and there's a street science that we use. That's a really good street science to teach your firefighters. Generally, though, to obtain full encapsulation, you're looking 5 gallons of a 3% solution for every 1 gallon of fuel. Dan, did you do your math?
Yeah, so typically we want to apply it at 0.2 GPM per square foot, kind of like you would an alcohol resistant foam. So Ron typed it in there. Beat me to it. So whatever you're applying, take the square footage of your spill and times 0.2, and that'll give you your amount of finished agent to put on there. Hang on one second.
Well, Dan does his math again. I'm a firefighter. start fight, you can again, like using foam, right? If
Okay.
you have a large spill, you want to make sure you have enough of everything before you start fighting the fire. So Dan, what'd you come up with?
I came up with the same thing Ron did. I came up with 833. He came up with 800 square feet. I thought that was too many square feet, so I was like, recalculate, but that's what it comes up to.
Yeah. So there you go, 800 square feet per pail. But
And it's
again,
going to
your
make
mileage,
166 gallons of finished product, so finished
yeah,
solution.
your mileage may vary, right? So again, in all seriousness, when you have those large incidents, it does give you some time to sit down and do the math on those things and make sure you have enough. And that's what happened in Nye County is they waited until they had the trailers there. It took the trailers a little bit. They did not start applying the booster water they had until the trailers showed up. And they said, let's wait. And again, in those large incidents, you do have the time to make sure you get everything together versus, say, a rescue incident where we need to maybe not we're interested in complete extinguish a fire, which is interested in getting to the vehicle, pulling a person, car goes under a gasoline tanker. I just want to push the fire back, get the occupants out, and then we can stand back and calculate and plan for final extinguishment. So,
Okay, great. Another question came up. What about primary lithium metal? Can F500 be used on Class D?
yes, highly effective on Class D fires. Really interesting demonstration we do. I use magnesium ribbon when I do it. Some people use other types of magnesium, but the ability of the F500 to rapidly draw the heat off when applied gently in like a rain. You don't get the big explosions. It cools very effectively, but in fact, Ron, who's on here, one of our Eastern manager, was at an aluminum plant, and they were applying it directly to crucibles of molten aluminum, and actually cooling the aluminum into a solid block without any explosions or anything else. So highly effective on Class D metal fires.
All right, just double checking that we don't have any more. I would like to share a quick video, and it's on Class B, and it's fairly recent. We did some testing on transformer fires at a power company, fire department, or fire brigade training site. So it's going to show you the effectiveness of F500 in a Class B, three-dimensional Class B environment. And I'm waiting for that video to open up here. All right, let me share this really quick if I can.
So we have several power companies that have purchased trailers of F500 and distributed them to fire departments in their service area, specifically for fires at their power plants or transformer yards. So Con Edison in New York City utilizes it and has an SOG with the FDNY specifically for fighting large transformer fires, and they actually have had one successful fire extinguishment already with it.
So this is a single line attack. You'll notice they have to end up chasing it around the corner, and that's why, another reason we'll recommend set up for a two-line attack whenever you can. You're going to get this thing snuffed out really quick. It's extremely effective at cooling the hot steel objects and so forth in that fire. Here's another fire, fire number 2, a larger fire. Let the pre-burn go longer. So we're talking with a single line. Always should have been 2 lines, but one of those experiential deals where you should be attacking with 2 lines. Set up for that Got 3 firefighters on one hand line. You probably could have split that 3rd, 4th firefighter out and gotten the 2nd hand going. They're kind of chasing it around in the circle a little bit, but eventually they get the entire surface encapsulated. Metal's cooled off. Let's think about, you only really have to encapsulate the top ½ inch to get that fire knocked down, and then you can figure out what to do with the rest.
Got a little fire on this side.
So from a training standpoint, one of the things, again, having been a training officer, one of the great things is we teach your firefighters fight fire like you're fighting it with water, right? So take that narrow fog pattern, you go over it and you just fight it. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to have special technique. We've had people say it is extremely forgiving of poor technique. So you just go in there, you fight the fire like you'd fight it with water, and you can see they put those flammable liquid pits out.
All right, looking at Q&A, looks like we might have another one. Okay, who do we email after this for a hazmat question, like what chemicals have been tested with, such as chlorine, hydrochloric acid, etc.? I will type my email in there. You can email me.
Dan is working out of our main office in Georgia, so he has access to a lot of information and a lot of people there that he can talk to. And again, you can reach out to any of us, and if we're unable to answer your question or we're not sure of the answer, we'll find a member of our team that is able to address it for you.
That is it for questions. Andre Barassa, our MSR for Canada, Eastern Canada, does recommend, just like, alcohol resistant foam, you apply that 0.2 gallon per square foot formula that you used before. Make sure you're ready to do that. Have that much quantity on your fire engine, for example. If you have a 500-gallon tank, you're going to need 15 gallons of concentrate to treat that to 3% and go for it. If you have a 1,000-gallon tank, you're going to need 30 gallons on board. So set yourself up for success in advance.
Yep, those are those good firefighting practices that we've been talking about today.
And I believe that's it for the question.
Great. Well, thank you, Dan, for your help there. Sometimes I can be a little urban Amish when it comes to technology. And thank you, everyone who stuck with us through the end for the question and answers. Please just let us know if you have anything. And again, our specialists, we would be happy to come out and burn with you, bring product for you to test, answer your questions, show up at your station. Just feel free to reach out. Well, we're all either active or retired firefighters, and we love getting out and playing with the wet stuff and the red stuff.
Everybody have a good day. Thank you, Heather, for helping us through with the technical issues as well. So I appreciate your work here, John. You did a great job.